You're listening to Puma Podcast.
I grew up going to the National Museum for school field trips, and I've always been fascinated by art, mostly paintings. My intrusive thoughts are always don't touch it, don't touch it, don't touch it. Thankfully, those thoughts did not win, but the fascination remained. Some of the biggest names in the pantheon of Filipino art include Juan Luna, Felix Resurrección Hidalgo, and Fernando Amorsolo. National hero Jose Rizal was also talented in sketching and sculpting. Now that the National Arts and Culture Month has ended and the Art Fair Philippines is done and dusted, let's reflect on what's happening in the world of Filipino art today. Are our young people into art? And where is the scene headed? In this episode of Thought Bubbles, we talk to retired lawyer, attorney Joseph or JT Gonzales, the owner of Gallery.sort, about Filipino artists today, AI art, and his recommendations for those who would like to collect and dabble into art. Let's dive in. Hi, Joe. Welcome to Thought Bubbles. Thank you so much for having us in your very beautiful gallery here in Quezon City.
Hi, Bubbles. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for coming and accommodating my request for you to come and appreciate the place.
So, to start this conversation off, I want to hear from you as a gallery owner and as an artist yourself. What is happening in the world of Filipino art, and have the youth of today's, meaning Gen Z, Gen Alpha, do they have more interest now in Filipino art, or are they a bit more detached to the art scene?
I think there's plenty of things that are happening in the art world at the moment. You're seeing a shift, I think, from visual art to something more tactile. I think if you look at the recent 13 Artists Award, a couple of them were specialists in textile fabrics. And you could also see that interest reflected in the ongoing Art Fair Philippines. There were a couple of booths that featured woven mats and sort of like tapestries, and they were able to generate sales. And me, I'm more of a traditionalist. I like visual art, like paintings. It's very hard for me to think about investing in a piece that's of fabric when I know that in 5 years time, that could fragment and basically degenerate.
So it doesn't appreciate like the ones on a canvas, say.
They don't stand the test of time as well as canvases. So, but for some reason, that's what's interesting now. So you're seeing a shift towards that. If you also go and look at what's happening in Metro Manila, there have been artists collectives that have been sort of coagulating and consolidating, and they're gathering themselves together, and they're forming groups that promote themselves, which I think is good because then you break out of the monopoly held by galleries, and because they're talented, they have the ability to market because they're social media savvy. Then they actually don't need the intervention of gallerists. So yeah, they're breaking the model of the traditional gallery artist relationship, and maybe something will come out of it. And so long as they're business savvy and they're able to take care of themselves in the commercial world out there.
For long term.
Yeah, I mean, they're young now and there's lots of enthusiasm, but let's see where they are 5 or 10 years.
So speaking of these young people who are doing these collective type of series or collective type of visual art, do you see that kind of demographic coming into like a gallery like yours? From the time that you've opened your gallery, how many people have come and purchased between the ages of say 18 to 25 or 30?
Okay, that's a tough question Because while I carry young artists, I don't think there are a lot of 25-year-olds that have the capability to already start investing in art. What I try to do though is to look for the niche that's sort of aspirational. So if you're a student now, like if you're a med student, you're 23, you're gonna look at something and you're gonna think, oh, I really like it, but I can't afford it now. But if I try to save, and then maybe 2 years from now, I can afford it. So it's something within reach.
Right.
Not now, but later on, especially if they become doctors, they become lawyers, they become professionals. Then, so long as they're already hooked by the idea of seeing something that can inspire them, or something done by their peer, then they'll already start. They have the mindset already that they will be acquiring not necessarily for the purpose of investment. It resonates with them, they identify with it, and so they bring it home.
Actually, I want to also add to that, no, when I went to the comic fair last year in Comuna in Makati, I see a lot of artists making I think they're stationaries. I mean, their artwork, stickers in sticker form. Yes, they do that, and they sell a lot.
Yeah.
So, in the world of everything is being digitized, and in the world of AI being in the front and center of everything, are there protections in place for Filipino artists such as yourself or such as the people that you have here in your gallery?
Well, what we have is the existing framework, traditional copyright law. It hasn't, caught up with the advances made by AI. So the most that you can do is use traditional law in order to capture AI theft. Having said that, it's still debatable whether what AI is doing is really theft of somebody else's idea or is it generating something new.
Right.
The arguments kasi of those who espouse AI is that it's the artificial intelligence is processing millions of images and out of that mishmashing them and creating something entirely new,
Right.
which could be correct or which could be interpreted also, which is what other people say, is that that's basically saying you're stealing millions of ideas to come up with your own idea. So the jury is still out on that. There are a couple of courts right now, I think in the US, that are debating whether AI art is protected by copyright law or if they're not, because
Right.
they're just intellectual theft.
Have you had any cases of that happening?
I haven't heard of any. Recently, Christie's had an auction of AI-generated art. I think there were
Really?
20 pieces.
Wow.
And that caused controversy already. Because, of course, our artists are saying, you're basically sanctioning the theft of ideas.
Right.
And then there were artists who participated because what they did was they had their own ideas that they fed into a machine and the machine spat out whatever visual image. They're saying, that's my original thought. That was translated by the program. I was the one who
To think of that.
to think of that.
So it's really, it hasn't been cleared pa on our end, especially on our end.
No. But for me, personally, I don't like AI art. And I don't see that it can in any way approximate the amount of human effort that's involved in painting a canvas and spending sweaty hours just perfecting, even the background or the brush strokes of an artist.
Right.
So for me, it's like pressing a Xerox machine and something
Exactly.
comes out.
I was about to say that because we've been using photocopiers for years already, and if we define what AI is to art, then sobrang daming gray areas nun that kailangan natin i-black and white, right? So if I were to approach you, a gallery owner, and ask you, I want to start collecting art, not just for display, but also for investment purposes, so that in the future, if I have kids and grandchildren, I can pass them on to them. So how do we go about it? How do I go about it?
For me, the number one advice I give to people is exposure. Just go out there, see what's out there, see what you like, see what strikes a chord in you, see what makes you respond. It makes you either happy or angry or depressed. And then try inquiring who the artist is, what his techniques were, why is he doing this, what was his process. And along the way, maybe you'll fall in love with the art, maybe you'll hate the artist, maybe you'll evolve into something else. But at least it's the start of educating your aesthetic palette. And then, take some risks here and there, because not everything you purchase is going to become a surefire investment. But
Right.
at least bring home something that, that will make you want to wake up and look at it every day for the next 2 years. Have your coffee and look at it and admire it and say, oh, that was really nice. And that sort of emotional payback, I think, is a good enough investment. Whether it appreciates monetarily,
Or
nobody
not.
can guarantee, because the artist can drop dead the next day. And
Right.
That's it.
So you wouldn't know, diba? It's like the same thing when you take business risks, right? So it's the same thing with art. So you have to take such risks. So with the artwork that you have here, I want to also debunk the myths that art is only for the rich. Kapag mahirap ka or there's a certain tax bracket, hindi ka na pwedeng bumili ng art. So how do you respond to that?
Of course not. I mean, you can, again, if you start going around and exposing yourself, you see that there's an entire gamut of art that's available. From mall art to the ones where you go, you said the Comiket convention, and you can see little sketches that are pretty, and they won't break the bank.
Right.
Here in my space, I think we carry. We don't have stuff that's about like a couple of 100,000 or whatever. We try to make it affordable, and really do specialize in emerging artists, which means that they're just starting out. So they're very easy on the budget. And yeah, well, it's a big investment in the
Yes, of
sense
course.
that it's risky, because you don't know where the artist is gonna end up. They might not continue making.
Yeah, exactly.
They might decide, I know this really fantastic sculptor in Cebu, but there wasn't any future in sculpting in Cebu, in the market there. So we ended up working on a cruise ship sculpting ice sculptures in Europe. So sad.
So that
because,
ended his Filipino art career. Well, yeah.
So well, maybe he'll earn enough and he'll go back to making metal sculptures from his ice carvings.
Okay.
But
Yeah. So you've mentioned that you have up and coming artists here. Do you prefer their artwork to those who are already like tenured artists?
okay, the thing is, I'll be the first to say I'm not an expert in masters, and there are plenty of fake masters floating around. So the last thing I want to do is get involved in trouble and try to dive into the world of fakes and reproductions and lawsuits.
Yeah.
So I'm very lawsuit averse.
Iwas litigiousness.
It's much more fun if you're meeting young artists, you're seeing them develop, you're trying to guide them, you're trying to balance their preferences with what the market likes. There is this idiom going around, this saying that says, why spend money on an artist who's dead when the living artists are the ones who need it? So if you take that to heart, then it's much better if you're helping
The living
the
ones.
living ones
Yeah.
rather than the dead
The
ones.
estate of the dead ones. That's right. That's right. So another controversial question that I have in mind: are you pro or anti Banksy?
Banks?
Banksy.
Oh, Banksy. Uh, no, I am not anti-Banksy. I think he is very fresh. Uh, he's very inspirational to a lot of artists. And he also carries with him a political slant.
Yeah.
So he's very anti-war. He's very pro-poor, pro-oppressed. So if you look at it through that lens, then there's nothing you should be upset with that Banksy. So of course, he does break some graffiti laws,
Right.
some first world countries.
Yeah.
But then we're third world. What do we care about?
We have vandalism everywhere, no? Bakit hindi na lang si Banksy yung mag-paint ng mga walls natin sa EDSA, di ba?
Yeah.
So, parting words for our listeners about Filipino art, because people would always look at the Picassos of the world, the Monets,
And they should. Yeah.
But how about us? How about the artists that we have here at home? So how do we continue, or how do we ask people to, hey, support them naman, or look at...
Well, number one, there's the power of social media. If you see a nice piece of artwork, then take a snap and then just post it wherever, whatever your social media account is, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or whatever. And there's plenty of free art everywhere. You don't have to pay in order to gain access to all these artworks. Like in Metro Manila, the galleries that open every week, it's like you'll get dizzy from attending the openings.
Really?
They've only just follow their accounts, check out their calendar. There's one opening on Wednesday, on Thursday, on Friday, on Saturday, on Sunday. And just travel a bit, do an hour's worth of commuting, and you're there.
Right.
There's Pinto Gallery, there's an entrance fee, but he does make available the best in contemporary artists. That alone is worth an entire afternoon, or even an entire day of just
roaming around,
immersing yourself in who the real good ones or the current contemporary artists are. Not again the dead ones. There are some dead ones, some masters, but mostly the living ones that we should be really promoting within ourselves. What else? Well, museums would be a good start also. I think there's plenty in the collections that should make people enthusiastic about Philippine art.
All right. Thank you so much,
Thank
Joe,
you, Bubbles.
for letting us talk to you this afternoon on a Sunday.
And that's it for today's episode. We've gone from field trips to fine art, from Juan Luna to AI, and from don't touch the painting to should I start collecting art? The answer, maybe. Let's manifest it. Big thanks to Joseph or JT Gonzales for sharing his insights, because whether you're an artist, a collector, or just someone who enjoys staring at paintings a little too long, there's always more to explore in the world of Filipino art. If this episode got you thinking, drop your comments in the Q&A section on your Spotify app, or tag us on Instagram at Puma_podcast and on X at PumaPodcastPH using the hashtag ThoughtBubbles. I'd love to hear what you think. This episode is edited by Anthony Tobias, and our editor-at-large is J. Mark Tordesillas. If you enjoyed this episode of Thought Bubbles, share it with your family and friends. And don't forget to subscribe to Teka Teka for more stories that make you think. We're also on Facebook, X, and YouTube, so follow us there too. And hey, if you want to connect with me, I'm on Instagram and Threads at Bubbles Magpayo, and on TikTok at Bruha23. That's BREWHUH23. Would love to hear from you. Until next time, keep looking, keep creating, and as always, hands off the artwork, please.